Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We are live and starting to see attendees pop in. So welcome to all of you who are joining. I'm going to just give a couple moments for everyone to get situated and join in and have audio. And it's awesome to see everyone. We have a very full team here ready to interact and share our experience at Conf with all of you and hoping to make this a good time. It is great to see a lot of familiar faces joining and a lot of new faces too, which is awesome to see on this list. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join our webinar and to hear from us. We are looking pretty good. I'm still seeing folks filing in. Always a good thing. I think, Josh, we can go ahead and start firing away with content, and anyone else who joins, they can always get caught up to speed. So we don't want to waste anyone's time. All yours.
Yeah, thanks. So to kick this off, we wanted to do a recap of our conf24 experience. Most of the people on this call had not been to conf before, I think with the exception of myself, Tom Kopchak, and Lucas as well. Everyone else, this was their first time attending. We had a really great experience, not only as a team, but just as a company, seeing what's new, what's coming to Splunk. So we wanted to take time to come back here and recap, with everyone here, what we learned, our favorite parts, and, even kind of wrap it around, should you be going next year and what to look forward to.
So I guess one of the questions I have is we can pop open a poll and see how many of you actually did attend conf, because I'm curious about that. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's see a breakdown of how many people attended. Looks like it's overwhelmingly so far no, sadly. Which I guess it's good that's why you're here, because you came to get a recap from us. That is excellent. And it seems like we've yet to get a yes from anyone. So yeah, they're here to recap, and we can just assume that they didn't see any of the announcements. So the slate is completely clean there, Josh.
Yeah, sounds good. There's a lot of things we'll talk about again today. Some of us just talking about experiences, our favorite pieces, as well as the big items that came out of the conference. So as I said, Tom, if you want to move on to the next slide, this is the team that went. We sent some people from sales, some of our technical folk, just to get a good mix of people there to help not only run the booth, but to make sure that they're sitting in a variety of talks, gleaning as much new information as they can, and bringing it back to not only the company, but to our customers and other people we work with. It was a great week. It was a very long and tiring week. You'll see later a picture of me kind of taking a nap on the ground there. But we had a really good experience, and we're going to share that with you today. So I'm going to hand it off to Meredith to walk through some stats and facts from the week.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So these are just some fun stats and conf by the numbers for us. So as Josh said, the eight of us attended conf. 7 of 8 of us are here on the webinar. But we had a wonderful breakdown of 2 management, 2 from sales, 2 from our Splunk team, and 2 from our SOC team. And 50% of us were first-time conf attendees, myself included. There were 145 minutes of Hurricane Labs-led presentations, and we'll get into those a little bit later, but breaking down a presentation from Tom, global broadcast from Tom, and then a workshop led by Tom and Rob. We had 1,000+ visitors to our booth, both a mix of returning customers as well as just new faces. So it was lovely to meet everyone that we had the chance to. Across our team, we did also have 7 Splunk certification exams that were taken. And then there were some record-breaking temperatures in Vegas that averaged out to 111 degrees per day, never really went below 108. So we got the heat as well. And then a few of us also attended CribbleCon the day before, but we don't talk about that. And I will pass it off to Casey to go through some of the key announcements.
Yeah, let's get into it. So there are a few key announcements this year. The first major announcement was the new partnership between Splunk and Cisco. So the tagline they're running with that is #BetterTogether. And then on top of the new partnership, there were a few new versions and features for their existing lineup of products. So the biggest for those are Splunk ES version 8 And then they also demoed a lot of AI integration across the entire Splunk catalog in general. So on the merger side of things, in Cisco's words, they've committed to not mess things up. They want to continue down the existing roadmap for Splunk, keep things the way they are, keep the ball rolling, keep innovating. Overall, it's looking like a fruitful partnership for both Splunk and Cisco. Cisco has the experience generating the data. Splunk has the experience collecting that and making it into something usable. So they both kind of complement each other. One example benefit from this partnership on the security side of things is Cisco Talos is actually coming to Splunk later this year. So the Intel will be available for free in Splunk. And then on the ES side of things, this is pretty exciting. So they unveiled a major redesign and they've actually blended the mission control interface into ES itself. And then on top of that, they've introduced SOAR integration directly into incident review. So you can actually run playbooks directly from an incident. And this should be coming out later in Q3. And then, so the big thing this year, AI. So they have 3 flavors of Splunk AI this year, AI for SPL, AI for Observability Cloud, and then AI in security. So AI for SPL is available now, and that actually turns human language prompts into SPL queries, and that's available in Splunk Cloud. Observability Cloud, so that was demoed this year at the keynote, and this was basically human readable prompts into troubleshooting recommendations for IT stacks. And then also they tease for later this year in security. There's a new AI that will actually summarize security incidents into reports, and that'll be coming out hopefully in a demo later this year. And now I'll go ahead and hand things over to Jonathan to talk a little more about the .conf events.
Yeah, let's do it. So the first one, and probably one of the more notable ones, was Boss of the Sock. This one, or for those who don't know, BOTS or Boss of the Sock is a competition that they hold at .conf. And this was the 9th year that they were doing this. And it's a CTF style competition, or where each team is consisting of up to 4 people. And you have to search for correct answers and put them in to get points. And there's also a time factor here. So the longer you wait to input an answer, or the longer it takes to get the answer, you are penalized for that time. And it reduces the amount of total time, or the total points that you can get for that question. So also, if you give an incorrect question, it also reduces the total amount of points you can get for that question. So we at Hurricane Labs, we split into 2 teams here, one consisting of myself, Casey, Josh, and Rob. And then Tom and Meredith also created a team who they filled with 2 other folks from, not from HL. And we were appropriately named, our team here was appropriately named the Hurricane Lads from Hurricane Labs. So we had questions from Splunk, Splunk Enterprise Security, SOAR, Attack Analyzer, and Observability, just to name a few of them. So we were challenged in all areas of the Splunk ecosystem. So now I want to open it up to the team, and kicking it off, just asking you guys, what were some of your favorite aspects or parts of the bots competition?
Yeah, I'll go first. You can see in that photo there in the bottom, Gavris, if he hasn't said it already, loves to be in competition, super competitive, and he's smiling there while Casey and I look a little bit more distraught. It was a really cool competition in general. I mean, I think, and you'll see this later, is my favorite part of the conference. Bots was really validating in a selfish way, right? I've been in management a few years, so when they asked me to join their team, I was like, man, there's no way I'm going to provide any value. But proud to say I put a decent amount of points on the board and held my own. So it was really cool from a self-validation perspective. And truthfully, like, we have a lot of clients in different products and all being used differently. Typically, not everyone has ES and SOAR and Attack Analyzer and Observability in every product. So it was cool to be given situations that were reflective of real world situations, where all of those products were being used in tandem to kind of see how that could really create a pretty cool ecosphere in a business.
Yeah, off that, that's one thing I wanted to say is I really appreciated the integrations and how realistic the data that they had was. It gave it a really realistic feel. So, I mean, we were a brand new team. I don't think I mentioned that yet, but we're a fresh team. All of us have on Hurricane Labs have not competed in bots before. So being able to not having competition experience, but being able to go in and have data that it's like, hey, we've seen this before, and being able to do pretty well, which we'll talk about on the next slide. It was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, I liked it too because this was the first time that I had been exposed to a real instance of Attack Analyzer, and it was pretty cool to see. And actually, I picked a couple of conf talks later in the week to do just because of the stuff that we dove into bots. So it was nice seeing that.
Yeah, I think it was overall like a really cool experience, and I enjoyed being able to kind of experiment with some of the tools that we don't normally use. Like we don't typically use observability, but it was kind of cool to experiment with that a little bit. Also kind of nice to see that like real world skills transferred over like into the CTF and stuff. So overall really cool.
I would say for the team Meredith and I were on, we had one of our clients actually competing with us, which is awesome to have that interaction that we work through sock alerts and things over Slack, but we don't have that opportunity to see, hands-on sitting in the same space with one of our customers. And that was great. And one of the things they called out is like, they got to something like, this is why we have you. I don't want to deal with this. You guys deal with that. So that was kind of pretty validating, but also have that opportunity to actually have a good time with the client that we don't usually get to do that with. So that was awesome. I know Gavrish, there are some parts of Boss of the Sock that you really liked, I think, especially around SOAR, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love SOAR, so being able to just jump in and do SOAR for a competition that I also, as Josh mentioned, I love those. It was really cool. I mean, that's you're killing two birds with one stone there. So it was really enjoyable for me doing that. So I think we can move on here if no one else has anything they want to add.
I guess we have to drum roll.
Drum roll.
How did things work out?
We placed really well. We actually placed third place out of 77 teams. And again, this is a pretty big event for Conf. So the fact, as I mentioned earlier, we were a completely fresh team. So none of us have had bots experience before. Being able to translate those real life skills that we've had into an environment and come out like on the podium is incredible. And it was kind of funny. One of the funnier parts about this was because the competition's pretty long, right? It starts at 7:30, around 7:30 p.m. I think I'm right on that, and goes on until 11:30. And we were joking beforehand, like, we'll see where we are halfway through it, maybe go get some late dinner or something, and then call it for the night. But pretty much right from the beginning, we were doing really well. I don't think we left the top 10 starting in after like 30 minutes in. So the fact that we were able to place third is also just, it was really impressive considering the two teams in front of us. They've had members there that have historically done really well in bots. Some of them even participating in all 9 events. So that's really cool to see. That was really awesome from our team, and really proud of us for that one. So I'm now going to go to the next event that we were well, I was going to say we participated in, but unfortunately, we did not know this was a team game. So I showed up to Automation Games here by myself. And let's talk about that just for those of you who don't know what it is, because I think it's a newer thing at Conf. It's basically an interactive workshop session, similar to bots in the sense that it's a friendly competition, but it's created to help you learn and use Splunk SOAR to automate alerts in your environment. So you're basically given a SOAR environment fully set up and integrated with things like Splunk, obviously, AD, like Active Directory, AWS, Slack. They gave you Attack Analyzer. I also think they gave you an EDR solution. I remember Microsoft Defender Endpoint. And I believe they also had some threat intelligence apps. I think they had Recorded Future as well. So as a side note, that was super cool to see. I mean, how well integrated those environments were. I mean, it shows that they were really trying to go for a realistic feel for Splunk SOAR, which I really appreciated. And so from the competition sense, there are 4 levels here. So several questions in each level, and each of these levels and questions, they were represented by a label in SOAR. So alerts were being ingested for each of those levels, for each of those questions, and the whole goal was to build playbooks for each of those. So the entire competition, playbook building competition. So you basically create the playbook, submit a response to their custom app, and then as alerts continue to get ingested, you continue to get points as the automation kicks in for each of those alerts. So again, one thing that was kind of funny was that this was a team game. I showed up by myself. which I kind of was thinking about that at that point. Was, well, should I call someone to see if I could get some help? But I was kind of up for the challenge. I wanted to see how well I did out of teams that were, had up to 4 people, similar to bots. And I actually placed 5th place out of, I want to say there are around 35 teams. So if that was really cool to see too. The fact that, I love SOAR, was able to compete in another competitions completely SOAR related, place 5th. And it was really cool to see. So if you love SOAR too and you attend conf in the future, definitely check out Automation Games. They gave you like challenge coins and the acrylic awards too for the leaderboard winner. So that was pretty cool. I was telling the team we should get a full team for Automation Games next year too. So that was that. Let's move on to the presentations.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. So obviously, a big part of conferences is sharing information with attendees. And this is one of those areas where when I first started going to conf, attended session, learned a lot from people, and ultimately I've had the opportunity to be one of those presenters and share that information with people ever since I presented first in 2016 and presented in 2019 till now every year. And it's fabulous to have that opportunity to talk. But also this year, I get a chance to involve Robert Palcisco too, one of my colleagues on the Splunk team. So we both got to do 2 different sessions, which was awesome. So first, my breakout session, that was the episode 6 of Administrators Anonymous, which if you're not familiar with that, this has become one of the most popular and highest rated sessions at conf in all of conf history, which is, I don't understand, but it's fabulous to hear that people really enjoy it. There are so many attendees that have been to this session over and over and keep coming back because they want to hear the content and want to learn. And I love sharing it with people. My objective for this is I work at Hurricane all of the year, just being one of our Splunk admins, one of our Splunk implementation engineers. I do all kinds of work with Splunk here. And I run into some weird things. And sometimes it'll be Splunk breaks in a weird way, or I find, that was something that I learned that we've never seen before, and we want to implement that across our clients. And I don't want to just keep that to ourselves. I want to share that with the Splunk community. And conf is one of the ways I do that. I keep a doc open all throughout the year. I add stuff to it and then pick out the things that I find are most interesting, make it part of this conf session. So tips and tricks, advice, all kinds of things around how to make your Splunk environment better and how to be a better Splunk admin. So people love to come to that session. It fills up all the time. There are like 400 people in the room. It's crazy, but I definitely enjoy doing that and having the opportunity to do that. And I really hope that we will be able to be back again next year to do that as well. But one of the other things that happens at conf is not just the breakout sessions, but their interactive workshops. And that's where me and Cisco this year did a interactive session all about the Splunk deployment server. So Cisco, you could talk a little bit about what that was like and what we covered.
Yeah, absolutely. So the interactive workshops were one of the more recent additions to the sessions that the conf has. It was pretty cool. Like Tom said, it was one of 35, so pretty limited amount were allowed in. But it was really cool. We could, from the ground up, we decided what topics we wanted to talk about. We decided on the deployment server, and we just thought, hey, what do we want to talk about that isn't, necessarily available in the spec sheets, and what do we run into on a daily basis? So we came up with a whole bunch of points we wanted to bring up, and then we created labs from the ground up. So we created a lab instance and a whole infrastructure around this, and then we were allowed to share this with the whole group. So everyone ran through these through the lab sessions that we built out, and we were able to get feedback and work with people and share some knowledge that we build on a daily basis.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that was in the session was just stuff that you just can't find anywhere in documentation or Splunk answers or anything. It's just stuff that we've run into from working with the product for so many years. And it was awesome to share that. And I think everyone at the session walked away learning something new. And they were just happy to see a very advanced, highly technical session that was an interactive workshop. So I think that worked out really well and people loved it. So these are hard to get into. So like, I recommend if you are attending conf in the future and they have interactive workshop sessions, go ahead, find ones you're interested, show up for them, register ahead because they do fill up right away. Like this one, I think it filled up within the first 2 days of registration being open. And it's 150 people. It seems like a lot, but that goes quick. So keep that in mind. And it's something that's not recorded and something that you can learn a lot. And I've learned a lot from other sessions I've been to for that as well. So it was awesome working with you, Cisco, on that, and I'm looking forward to having the chance to do it again.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
I'm glad. Now also the Conf Global broadcast. This was actually something that the Splunk community coordinators asked me to submit an idea to the session, and I got selected out of everyone in the Splunk Trust to be able to give a 10-minute talk as part of the global broadcast that had the keynotes and the online version of Conf. So in order to do this, I put together a totally separate talk that was just covering 3 key tips about how to make your Splunk environment run better. Awesome thing about this, you can go right now to the Splunk Global broadcast and watch this and share that and learn that information as well. This is also something that I got to give in person at Conf in one of the open areas by the community booth and meet a bunch of people as well that maybe didn't get into the session that I gave earlier. So all around, just seeing a lot of people was fun. That said, we all have favorite parts of Conf. And you're probably sick of hearing me talk for a little bit, but I want to bring in everyone else in the team and talk about our favorite things. But before I stop, you still get to hear from me. Sorry about that. So one of the things I really love about Conf is seeing how much of a difference our work does in the Splunk community. I'm one of the members of the Splunk Trust. That's where I have the funny hat, the fez. That's something that's a recognition for being outstanding in the Splunk community and sharing information and knowledge and all of that. So, but just seeing that, like walking around Conf and just running into so many people who I've helped or Hurricane Labs has helped, it's just awesome just to see that. And people, it's almost like being a celebrity or famous. It's weird. And I can't imagine what that would be like in real life, but whatever. Conf is not, real life for us for a couple of days. So that was something I really enjoy. And just hearing from so many people who are fans of our content, our blogs, our webinars, all that kind of stuff, and how much it helps them, including like we have companies that like competitors that come to us and like, hey, you saved my butt at a professional services engagement because of this tutorial you wrote. And like just hearing that, it kind of blows my mind. We're helping competitors, but the fact that they trust us and use our knowledge in order to do things better, like what more could we say? So I love hearing that. Next, I'll hand it over to you, Josh.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on this already, right? Bots. Again, never having competed, also being a manager in a couple of years, it was just cool to be able to step in and validate I still had skills and experience and actually knew what I was talking about nowadays. So that was a lot of fun. Outside of bots, though, to Tom's point, I spend a lot of time with customers, just grabbing drinks, food, hanging out, chatting, and it's a really cool. Relaxed way to hang out with clients, right? As Tom said, Meredith and Tom competed on a team with one of our clients for bots. It's significantly more relaxed than having to hop on a call with someone over possibly 10 situations or incidents, right? It's hey, we're here to learn and have fun. So that was also really cool. And then I think the only other thing I call to is anyone that knows me is I love good swag. You can see me sleeping on the floor there with my Splunk shirt on, which I have on today that I got there, my Splunk hat, and my Splunk pillow, which has been gifted to my dog and she loves it. So it was all around really cool experience and I really enjoyed it. Jonathan, you're up.
Yeah, probably. Obviously, I really love the competitions. As Josh mentioned, I'm a pretty competitive person. I used to do competitions in university, things like CCDC, which is the Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition, or CPTC, the Collegiate Penetration Testing Competition, which a lot of us now at HL actually volunteer for. So that's also really cool. That webinar was earlier this year, actually. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool to be able to do it on like a professional level now instead of like a collegiate level. So being able to participate in something like that was really cool. And to do relatively well for our first time was awesome. I mean, kind of similar to what Josh said, being able to just meet clients, people we talk to all the time in tickets or emails or on calls. And it was kind of nice. You're almost like, hey, nice to officially meet you now face to face. And then meeting other people in the community was also great. Everyone was awesome to talk to. It really shows how great the Splunk community is. A true testament to that. So then I did pass my power user exam. Everyone said that's one of the harder exams, even though it's number 2 there in the track. But I was able to also participate in the cyber defense engineer beta exam, which was also really fun. It was long. It was 100 questions, 2 hours. So that one took a while, but was pretty cool to be a part of that. And then obviously, the swag, came home with a suitcase full of new stuff from other vendors and from Splunk. So who doesn't like swag, right? Now I'll pass it on to Cisco.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, this was my first time attending Conf. And first of all, it was just fun. Running into people that you were talking to in the community and the user groups and running into on the Slack channels is nice to just to put a name to a face. And it was also really fun just putting together the talk that we were going through. This first time I've done public presentation in a long time, so it was nice exercising that and just going through the entire process. I really enjoyed the conf experience, and I'd highly recommend anyone who wants to go, submit your ideas for a talk. It's possible they'll let you in for that. There's always a lot of interesting topics that people bring up that you wouldn't have thought about. So I really enjoyed it. I'm going to pass it off to Casey.
Thanks, Cisco. All right, so I guess one of my favorite parts, all the security talks this year, they had a bunch of good ones. Getting those perspectives from like other analysts and engineers in the field, it's really helpful. Also seeing all the new ES changes, I think it's really exciting seeing the roadmap that Splunk is heading down. I think we're heading in the right direction. Meeting all the clients and partners that we work with every day, it's nice to actually see people in person. And also, of course, the cool swag that you get. Alrighty, Meredith, what were some of your favorite parts?
So my favorite parts, similar to all of you all, were the fact that I had the opportunity to meet a ton of people, both those new faces and in person. When I wasn't attending talks, I was always down at the booth. I pretty much lived at the booth. At one point, I climbed on it and people thought I was a little bit weird. But I had so much fun just interfacing with whoever was just so happened to wander by, and even just, kind of wandering around the conference telling people to come stop by our booth just to give us a chat. I met so many new faces and made so many new friends. And then swag for me was also one of my favorite parts of Conf. Rather than getting it and hoarding all of the awesome things that I saw from other vendors, while I did do that, I also had the opportunity to create some custom swag for Hurricane Labs using a brand new laser cutter that I bought. So we made some very fun premium swag, including some leather coasters, some patches. And that was just a whole lot of fun for me to try my hand. Yeah, Josh has got one. But to try my hand at some marketing and some new things there, and just, step outside of the technical realm a little bit there, and then go back in for Boss of the Sock, working with Tom and one of our clients to pass things back and forth the way that we normally would do during an incident, but at lightning speed where we're all sitting next to each other communicating. And that was so fun to get back into, just as Josh said. And then that C problem sign was one of my favorite parts of the conference because I do love to see problems. But that being said, let's shift over to talking about what we learned during this conference and just kind of passing it off to Josh to kick us off.
Yeah, and this might be why a portion of you guys are here, right? What we really learned here, outside of just collecting swag and having fun competing in bots. I attended Conf last year, so this was my second time here, and it definitely felt different this year. Last year, it felt like there was tons of updates, tons of features. This year, it felt significantly more confined to a select few topics. And particularly, the biggest one that came up here was AI. One of the first events we attended at the very start of Conf actually kicked off with the speaker saying, you're going to hear a lot about AI this week. If you don't have AI fatigue this year already, you're going to leave this week with AI fatigue. And they were right. It was really impossible to not sit through a keynote or some big news that came out that didn't revolve around AI, how AI was going to impact, how it's being integrated into everything. AI is everywhere. And Casey touched on it earlier. There's really three areas it's primarily being pulled into. One is there's already AI for Splunk search, right? So you type in what you're looking for. Hey, I'm looking for cupcakes in my logs, and it'll spit back a search logic on how to find cupcakes. The other piece that they did demo there was AI for observability, which was really cool. Transparently, the video was recorded, right? And there is the possibility that AI isn't as great as everyone says it is yet. But they did show a really cool, snappy demo where an incident popped up. I'm sorry, I should say an issue popped up with some servers, web servers getting some 404 errors and some other things, and showed how working with AI was able to quickly locate the issue in the logs, figure out which server is the problem, as well as immediately pinpoint that it was a resource utilization issue. And I think it made the recommendation for increasing the available memory for the instance. And that happened in a very short period of time. And that's really cool, right? while I've been in security for a long time, my background is also in IT and general IT and systems administration. So those types of things can take a long time looking through a lot of logs. Splunk obviously makes looking through logs easier, but an AI solution that is ultimately doing that for you on the snap allows you to give better responses for your team, right? If it's something like a web server being down for most companies, that means you're losing money every second that's down. So getting those things back up are timely. So it was really cool to see how that worked. The last piece there was not a demo for, but we're all really excited for here is they did say later this year they will be releasing AI for security. There wasn't an exorbitant amount of details there, but what they did touch on is aiding analysts in providing upfront and better investigations, right? So if you have a tier one like we do, it's kind of a tier one for your tier one. So when an incident occurs and notable is generated, the AI would do a bunch of immediate steps to gather information, grab contextual information, and even potentially suggest some places to check and put that in the notable. And if that comes out and delivers on everything it promises, that can be really huge, right? Anyone here who has a SOC background knows one of the first things you do is you spend a lot of time just trying to figure out what's even happening and why this alert fired in the first place. So someone showing up and saying like, hey, here's the alert. Oh, and here's everything that happened, and here's what you need to know. I mean, that could easily save, depending on the situation, 5 minutes to an hour sometimes. So that's really cool. There was a lot of AI talk, and I think ChatGPT has given us a lot of false sense of security, right? ChatGPT is good at what it does, but a lot of vendors over the past year that are putting out AI, and it is impressive, they're kind of struggling to fit it to their needs. And it does feel like last year when Splunk talked a bit about AI, it was more of AI coming to Splunk. So I think it's actually a pretty big step forward that they're breaking it out this year into different products. And I'm just presuming here, but it's probably that they realize like, hey, one AI solution does not work across the entire wheelhouse, right? It works for each of these things. It needs to be tuned for each of these things, built out individually. And hopefully that's really successful, because that'll mean really big things when we're talking about working in Splunk and expediting, remediation of issues. Now we're going to move on to talking about the updated ES version.
Alrighty, so I know I've brought up ES a lot so far. You can tell I'm really excited about it. I guess the biggest single takeaway for the new version, it's now like a true single pane of glass for investigations. I know that phrase is thrown around a lot, but with the mission control integration and SOAR integrations, it's actually like truly all on one page. The investigation and the response, everything is all done in one tab, so you don't have to jump around. From what they were demoing on stage, they ran like a quick walkthrough of an incident, and it took them like, I think it was like 23 minutes from beginning of detection to actually mitigating it was SOAR. So it was a big time saver, and it reduces like the overall fatigue for analysts in general. So overall, biggest takeaway, single pane of glass, and it's a huge time saver overall for analysts. Alrighty, so Jonathan, tell us a little more about SOAR and phishing.
Yeah, I mean, phishing is probably one of the biggest use cases that folks want out of SOAR, right? Trying to remediate that quicker, trying to detect, remediate, and do as much as you can, because phishing is a big deal in the industry. So one of the talks that I attended, there were a few talks which seemed like they were trying to promote this one a little more, but it was on how to handle phishing with SOAR. So what was neat to see from that talk is that the general outline that the presenter used on their playbook, their infrastructure, their how they built that entire setup was similar to what we've done for other clients. So that was kind of cool. But also some of the struggles they had were some of the things that we also run into. And the biggest one of those being time. One of the questions that stuck out to me was actually at the end of the presentation. Someone came up, asked the question, well, how long does it take? We get SOAR. How long does it take from start to finish to get the integrations, get the playbooks built, and start, acting on phishing alerts? And the presenter said about 3 to 4 months. And I kind of sat there shaking my head like, yeah, that kind of fits with my experience. I mean, phishing is really, it's tough to deal with. And when you're making automation for it, when you're looking at playbooks, it looks simple, right? I mean, you have kind of like a flow chart, you build a flow, but running into phishing is very complex in terms of sometimes you have to build out custom solutions, develop custom code to handle things in a certain way. So it can get pretty complex pretty quickly. So seeing that their outcome is similar to like what we've seen here at Hurricane Labs, is like, yep, that could take a while, and it's normal, right? But at your end product is you're responding to phishing so much quicker. So that was pretty cool. And one of the other struggles that was actually brought up in a question as well was the idea of QR codes in phishing emails. Like, how do you deal with that? Now, Splunk has Attack Analyzer, which actually can deal with that. But it kind of got my head thinking a little bit like, well, is there something like custom Python that we can write to deal with that too? So that's something that I'm still thinking about, and maybe it might lead somewhere. So if you have our managed SOAR services, that might be something we might add to your phishing playbooks later on, if that takes off the ground. So that's something I'm thinking about how to develop to deal with QR codes in phishing emails. So yeah, that's something that learned on the source side of phishing. And now we'll go on to the next question here. Should you attend conf next year? And my opinion is, if you have the opportunity to, absolutely go for it. It's a great experience, great bonding time with your team, get to meet a lot of new folks and learn a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, and I'd add on to that. This was my second one. I would also recommend it. There's a ton of things you can learn, and depending on how you need to get there, right? It's not like you just show up there and there's no cost. But as Rob mentioned, right, if you submit a talk and it's accepted by Splunk, you'll actually get a free ticket, free entry, which is really cool. It's also worth calling out that there is currently a question of if there will be a conf next year. Historically, every year on the last day of conf, as it wraps up, they immediately announce next year's dates. We expected rolling out at the last day here, conf24 in Vegas, July 2025, something like that. They did not do that. They did not confirm any dates. There was some question as to whether or not it might be rolled into the Cisco Live event next year. For those that aren't aware, they did move the conf date to be a week just after Cisco Live this year. So last year's conference was in July. This one was in June, immediately after the Cisco Live event. So when we talked to some people there in Splunk, it was, hey, we don't know what's going to happen. We're not really sure. It was kind of up in the air. So just calling out, you should definitely attend it if you can next year, but there's also not been a clear decision or at least anything official sent out yet on whether or not conf24 will be happening.
I do want to take this opportunity to poll the audience too, now that we've kind of shared a little bit of information, and just ask, like, based on what we've seen, assuming conf does exist, what are your future plans? Do you think you like to attend? You're not sure, or you're going to go with no? Seeing already a lot of results in the favor of yes, with a couple of you saying you're not sure. Very few no's. So hopefully if conf does happen and we have the opportunity to be there, I'd love to see y'all. It is awesome to see that. I will end that poll, and I think there's one person in the room that we haven't really heard from, and that was because he was the man that was laboring long hours at our booth all day, meeting all the attendees and customers, and just talking about how great our service is all to anyone who wandered by, and even those who didn't wander by. But want to hand it over to Lucas, because you had a very important role and met more people than all of us probably combined at
Yeah, I love having the chance, as one of the sales directors here, to get out and meet people at conf, and people stop by the booth really for a variety of reasons, whether they're current customers, just fans of our team that have heard of us via the bots competition, or any of our time on stage while we're at conf. A lot of people stop by because they've used our tutorials or blogs, as Tom mentioned earlier, even our competitors in some cases. And this year we actually had a prize wheel as well, which brought a lot of traffic. People love those prizes. And if you are on this call right now, those prizes are coming hopefully within the next week or so. So always love the chance to, like I said, meet people there and share a little bit about, our experience as an elite level partner over the last 10 years, or our services, whether it's, talking about PS, how to get more value out of your Splunk, or even full scale management of Splunk. People want to know, how we do SOC, how we do SOAR well, and it's awesome to get the chance to explain a bit in person. Another question I get all the time while we're there, there are a lot of booths and people wander around, they collect all the swag, as everybody's mentioned. So people ask what makes us different than the other guys with booths. Aside from our expertise across the entirety of the Splunk platform, we're amazingly transparent and we tailor our services to the individual client every time instead of a one-size-fits-all approach. We want to act as an extension of your team and fill the gaps where you need us, not where we think you might need us. And we also never do anything in black boxes. We want to help you maximize, as I've said, all the value you get out of your Splunk. So we work in your environment and everything we do is visible to you. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to the team. I know we're going to talk through some Q&A time, so I want to open up the floor as well.
Yeah, Meredith, if you can help us go through any Q&A that has come in, and also for anyone who's attending, that if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share, feel free to either throw it in the chat or send it as a question in the Q&A, and we can answer that.
Yeah, sounds good. So I will kick it off with the first question that we have in Q&A. And this one is a bit of a three-part question. So first part, are there any resources for the talks given by Robert and Tom that we can access currently? Tom, I'll pass that one to you.
Yeah, so a lot of the content for Conf does become available for attendees on the Conf website. They archive all the talks that are recorded that are not interactive workshops and things like that, like the full sessions. And those are available both in recorded and slide form for 3 years on conf.splunk.com. There's also some links to previous content that you can find on our website. We have a hurricanelabs.com/conf24 that has a couple of resources that are used in the global broadcast. The interactive workshop session that unfortunately is not recorded, but I think we're going to put together a page where we can make some of the slides and material and information available for that. That's not done yet, but it's something we'll post on the Hurricane Labs website once we have it available.
All right, thanks, Tom. You actually answered the 2 follow-up questions there, which were, are there any resources from Conf in general that we can access? And if so, where should we find them?
The other thing I would just throw out, the global broadcast, that's something you can just go ahead and search for. If you just search conf24 global broadcast, you'll be able to find that. And you can watch the keynotes, you can watch the session I recorded and a bunch of the other parts of that. And that's free. You don't have to re-register for Conf or pay Splunk, anything for that, just something that's available.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. And the next question up, I'm going to pass over to Casey and Josh. This question is from Dan, and Dan asks if anyone at Hurricane has tried the AI for SPL feature, and if so, what were your impressions?
Yeah, I've used it. They did mention at Conf that there would be a lot of updates coming and massive improvements this year, which are very welcomed. I have used it prior, especially in the fall of last year, and it was very good at introductory language building, right? So if you were looking like, hey, where did this user log on in these logs, it would build you some basic logic. But if you were saying, hey, I want to know when this happens across these logs this many times and use some statistical analysis, it did kind of fall apart. And it would fall apart in the sense that it would start making recommendations that didn't make sense. Or even if you asked it something very specific, like, hey, find me this word in these logs, and you added a bunch of complex questions, it would just lose the keyword you were looking for in the first place. So I have used it, at least prior to Conf, the versions they had released. And if you were a newer SOC analyst or someone newer to Splunk, it was very good for guiding you through getting comfortable in using the searching feature or the Splunk language. But if you were a more advanced user trying just to speed up workflows at a higher level, it did fall apart. So what they improved this year is around their AI models, and hopefully that comes as well.
Yeah, I would say there's a pretty fundamental difference between the beta version that we saw last year and the new one. The new one is supposed to be able to connect to Splunk and actually use some of their models that are going to be updated. The previous one just kind of had a built-in on-the-box approach. That said, I actually finally got access to download that app yesterday. It turns out it is only for cloud stacks, and the demo cloud stack I spun up yesterday was not subscribed to do that. So I have not had hands-on opportunities to do that. But that said, if you have a Splunk Cloud environment and you're a client that has Splunk Cloud, you can actually request to download that app and get it added, and you can try it out in your own stack. So if you're a Splunk Cloud client, I would say, hey, go ahead, get the process started to try it out, see how it works, and either it's going to be something that's good or it's something that needs a little work, but getting that hands-on experience is going to be valuable. I really hope to actually be able to fire that up for this webinar, but it just didn't happen yet. It's a little bit of a complicated process because you have to like sign an agreement with Splunk that you're okay with the language models and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I would also definitely say that like for general stuff like Josh mentioned, it definitely works well for that, but any more specific use cases like specific to your environment or more complex questions, it wasn't always accurate. I would like take those answers with a grain of salt, or at least like test them to see if they actually work and then make some modifications. But it definitely did work before for like more simple stuff. So hopefully the updates they're pushing out this year will get a little better with that.
All right, thanks everyone. I don't see any other questions in the chat now, or in the Q&A. So we can hang out for a few moments if people are just typing away still. But otherwise we can move it along. But Tom, I'll pass it back to you.
And I'm going to actually pass it off to Lucas because he should be the one that takes us to the end. All yours.
Well, I hope this is useful. I hope you learned a lot. If you were not able to attend, I love getting the chance to showcase our team, as we do have longstanding expertise across the whole platform. So, as I mentioned before, whether it's licensing assistance, needing help getting up and running, or you just want more out of your Splunk, even if it's just a question, feel free to give us a call. I'd be happy to connect you with the experts on our team, and I'm sure we're willing to help you move forward with your Splunk. We want to help you get more out of it. So I would really encourage you, if you have not already engaged with us, go ahead and reach out, and we'll get you connected.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucas. To all of my colleagues on this team, it was awesome building this content out, having this webinar, attending conf, just working with all of you. So thank you for your time. All of you who are attending, thank you for showing up. We have these webinars quarterly and are looking forward to having a new one sent out soon. So look for that. And with that all said, we'll sign off from the Hurricane Labs team and we'll see you all in the future. Thank you so much for attending and have a great day.